Rafael Nadal, Episode 1, Birth and Childhood, June 3rd, 1986. In the small town of Manacor on the island of Mallorca, Spain, a boy was born. His name was Rafael Nadal Pereira. At that moment, no one could have imagined that this child from a quiet Mediterranean town would one day become one of the greatest names in tennis history. Rafael was born to Sebastián Nadal and Ana Maria Pereira. He grew up in a close-knit, disciplined family where sports were always a natural part of life. Football had a special place in the Nadal family. His uncle, Miguel Ángel Nadal, was a professional footballer who played for Barcelona and the Spanish national team. Because of this, young Rafa's first dreams were closer to football fields than tennis courts. He spent hours playing football with his friends in the streets of Manacor, chasing the ball and watching big matches with excitement. But the person who would change his life was another uncle, Tony Nadal. When Rafa was still very young, Tony Nadal placed a tennis racket in his hands. At first, it was simply a fun game, but Tony saw something special in his nephew, a boy who refused to give up. Training was never easy. Tony Nadal was not only teaching Rafa how to hit a forehand or serve the ball, he was teaching him discipline, patience, and the courage to fight through difficult moments. He wanted Rafa to avoid excuses after mistakes and never surrender after defeat. In everyday life, Rafael was right-handed, but Tony Nadal encouraged him to play tennis with his left hand. That decision would later become one of the most important parts of Nadal's unique and dangerous playing style. During his childhood, Rafa continued to play both football and tennis. But over time, tennis became more than just a sport for him. It became a passion. His early success in local tournaments helped him realize that he could aim for something much bigger. But Rafael Nadal's greatest strength was never talent alone. From a young age, he learned how to work hard. He learned to improve every day, to continue when things became difficult, and to stay humble no matter what he achieved. Years later, the world would know him as the King of Clay. But this incredible story began in Mallorca with a young boy, a tennis racket, and a dream. Rafael Nadal, Episode 2, The Teenage Years. As Rafael Nadal grew older, tennis stopped being just a childhood passion. It became his purpose. By his early teenage years, Rafa was already different from other young players. He had talent, speed, power, and a natural ability on clay courts. But what impressed people most was not his forehand or his athleticism. It was his mentality. While many teenagers were still discovering what they wanted in life, Nadal was already training with the focus of a professional athlete. His uncle, Tony Nadal, continued to push him every day. The lessons became harder, the expectations became bigger, and the pressure slowly increased. But Rafa never ran away from difficult moments. He learned that success was not about feeling confident every day. It was about continuing to work when your body was tired, when you lost matches, and when people doubted you. At the age of 13, Nadal represented Spain in junior competition and quickly became known as one of the country's most exciting young talents. He was still a teenager, but his intensity on the court was already remarkable. In 2001, at just 15 years old, Rafael Nadal officially turned professional. For most players, entering professional tennis at that age would have been overwhelming. The opponents were older, stronger, and more experienced. But Nadal did not try to become famous overnight. He stayed patient. He trusted his training. He trusted Tony, and most importantly, he trusted his ability to improve. That same year, he won his first ATP Tour match. It was an important moment, but it was only the beginning. Rafa was no longer just the talented boy from Mallorca. He was now entering the world of professional tennis. As his teenage years continued, Nadal's game became stronger. His left-handed forehand became one of the most dangerous shots in tennis. His speed allowed him to chase balls that most players would give up on, and his fighting spirit made every point feel like a battle. He was young, but he played with the heart of a warrior. People began to notice him. Tennis experts saw something special. Spain had produced many great players before, but Rafael Nadal looked different. He was not trying to copy anyone else. He had his own style, his own energy, and his own way of competing. The quiet boy from Mallorca was growing into a fearless young athlete, and soon the entire tennis world would know his name. Rafael Nadal. Episode 3. The final chapter. Rafael Nadal's story was never only about tennis. It was about sacrifice, pain, discipline, and the ability to keep fighting when most people would have stopped. From the moment he first stepped onto a clay court in Mallorca, Nadal carried something different inside him. He was not the loudest player. He was not the one searching for attention, but every time he held a racket, every time he walked onto the court, he showed the world what determination truly looked like. As he grew older, Rafael Nadal became more than a talented young player from Spain. He became a force in world tennis. His powerful left-handed forehand, incredible movement, physical strength, and fearless mentality made him one of the most difficult opponents in the history of the sport. But what made Nadal truly special was not only the way he played, it was the way he competed. For Nadal, every point mattered. Even when he was leading, he fought like he was behind. Even when he was exhausted, he kept running. Even when he was injured, he refused to give up. That mentality turned him into one of the greatest champions tennis had ever seen. Over the years, Nadal won some of the biggest titles in the sport. He became world number one. He won Grand Slam championships. He won Olympic gold for Spain. He helped his country achieve unforgettable victories in the Davis Cup. But there was one place where Rafael Nadal became something bigger than a champion. Roland Garros. The French Open in Paris became Nadal's kingdom. The red clay courts of Roland Garros were where he created history. Year after year, the best players in the world arrived in Paris with one goal: to defeat Rafael Nadal on clay. But almost nobody could do it. On that court, Nadal was faster, stronger, and mentally tougher than anyone else. His opponents knew they were not only facing a tennis player, they were facing a warrior who refused to lose. He won the French Open 14 times, creating one of the most incredible records in the history of sports. 14 titles, 14 moments of victory, 14 times standing on the biggest clay court in the world with a trophy in his hands. It was not just dominance, it was greatness. Throughout his career, Nadal also faced some of the strongest rivals tennis had ever seen. Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, Andy Murray, and many others pushed him to his limits. Roger Federer brought elegance and beauty to the game. Novak Djokovic brought precision, consistency, and mental strength. But Rafael Nadal brought something different. He brought fire. He brought intensity. He brought a fighting spirit that made every match feel personal. Their rivalries became some of the most unforgettable moments in tennis history. Millions of people watched as Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic created an era that may never be repeated. But Nadal's journey was not always easy. Behind every trophy, there was pain. Behind every comeback, there was doubt. His body suffered through many injuries. His knees, his foot, his muscles, and his physical condition often became major challenges. There were many moments when people believed that Rafael Nadal's career might be over. But Nadal never accepted that easily. He always came back. He came back after injuries. He came back after defeats. He came back when people said he was finished. And every time he returned, he reminded the world why he was one of the greatest competitors of all time. Rafael Nadal showed that greatness is not only about winning when everything is perfect. Greatness is about fighting when everything is difficult. It is about waking up every morning and choosing to continue. It is about believing in yourself when others do not. It is about refusing to quit. In the final years of his career, Nadal continued to battle through pain and difficult moments. The sport had changed. New players were rising. His body was no longer the same as it had been when he was young, but his heart remained the same. The same heart of the boy from Mallorca, the same boy who trained under the guidance of his uncle Tony, the same boy who learned that talent means nothing without discipline. When Rafael Nadal finally said goodbye to professional tennis, the entire world felt the emotion of that moment. Fans remembered the victories, they remembered the trophies, they remembered the incredible matches, but most importantly, they remembered the man behind the champion, a man who stayed humble, a man who respected his opponents, a man who never stopped fighting. Rafael Nadal's career will always be remembered for the titles he won, the records he created, and the unforgettable moments he gave to tennis. But his greatest legacy is much bigger than numbers. He taught people that success does not come from talent alone. It comes from hard work, it comes from patience, it comes from sacrifice. The king of clay, the warrior of tennis, the legend of Rafael Nadal.
Best sport in the world.